Precambrian was written in Australia. I was backpacking there with my ex-girlfriend and actually broke up with her on that trip and had a bit of a hard time. And I was walking along these endless beaches on the Australian east coast and had a lot of ideas in my mind. And then at night I would try to work them out on an acoustic guitar in the backpackers place where I was staying at. And the basic ideas of 4 or 5 songs of the Proterozoic album were written there.
In early 2007, we started recording drums for Precambrian, and that was the first time ever in the band history that we had a bit of a budget to do an album, and so I really wanted to get a good guy to track the drums. And I decided to go with a guy named Jonas Olsson, who had recorded a widely unknown but amazing Finnish band called Callisto. That drum sound that they had on their album, which came out around that time, was pretty much exactly what I had in mind for Precambrian, and so I rang up Jonas and hired him to track drums for us at a place called Studio 57 in Alateveli in the far north of Finland. Torge and me went up there, took the ferry from Rostock, which took 24 hours to get to Helsinki, and then another 12 hours driving up north, basically. And Matt also showed up later to record some of the heavy guitar tracks.
I had done a few weeks of touring with The Ocean and some shows here and there, and then Robin had asked me, hey, what about playing on the next album? Because up until that point, it was always him playing all the guitars on all the records. And I think at that point, he wanted to do some more producing to lighten his workload, probably.
Also, Yuki tagged along for company in this very remote area and also to film the recording process.
Zum Supermarkt musste man eine halbe Stunde laufen, aber es war irgendwie ganz toll, weil es so typisch finnisch war, typisch skandinavisch, wie man sich das vorstellt.
Basically in the middle of nowhere, so there wasn't any real distraction.
There was really nothing around that studio at all. It was one building, which was like a barn basically, that they had transformed into the studio, but it was located in a beautiful place, like right next to a river. That was a really good time, and we worked really efficiently, but it was also tiring. The stuff that Torge had to record was very challenging.
Ich wurde in den ganzen Sessions vielleicht 2-3 Mal richtig warm. Du nimmst 3 Minuten auf und hast 15 Minuten Pause nach dem Motto. Weil du spielst ein Part und musst Vollgas geben und dann hören die sich im Control Room eben an, ob gute Takes dabei waren.
Ja, und weiter. Komm, ich find's grad so schön. Endlich mal, das erste Mal so richtig, ne?
When our studio time ran up there, we returned to Berlin and we recorded all the vocal tracks, all the strings, and the bass tracks at Oceanland. But at that time, we had some vacancies in the band again. We didn't have a bass player anymore because Gordon decided not to tour anymore because he wanted to pursue a career job, basically.
Das war so eine Phase, wo ich dann gemerkt habe, okay, also ich muss wieder irgendwie arbeiten und muss jetzt mein Leben an andere Richtungen und Bahnen lenken. Und dann hat es mit der Musik auch nicht mehr so wirklich dann dazu gepasst. Und das bereue ich auch noch bis heute.
Gordon, ey, geiler Typ. Wir waren zwischenzeitlich auch ganz dicht.
Bei Gordos war halt auch immer geil, weil er halt, was weiß ich, in Saudi-Arabien irgendwelche Kernkraftwerke, irgendwelche Schrauben reinschraubt.
Wenn man mal irgendwie für ein Interview einen Menschen braucht, der irgendwas zu Atomkraftwerken sagt, was positiv ist, dann sollte man sich auf jeden Fall an Gordon wenden.
Ja, ein ultra begabt in technischen Dingen, Organisationstalent. Wenn wir den ein bisschen früher gehabt hätten, wäre manches anders gelaufen.
The bass tracks were recorded mainly by Mike, who joined us after seeing an internet advert.
So I sent him an audition, played Inertia on the bass, and that pretty much got me in. So Robin got in touch with us and said, yep, come on over to Berlin. So I went over there, ended up recording most of the bass tracks for Precambrian.
And then 3 tracks were recorded by this guy, Hannes, who later would also do a tour with us. And we had a few tracks that were recorded by our old bass player, Jonathan Heine. And then We had some really tough challenges to face up to. First of all, the whole album was consisting of largely different material, and we were thinking of how to get all this together in a way that makes sense. That's how the idea of the double album came into play originally. And then apart from that, we had a lot of classical musicians playing on the record, and it was very interesting for me to work with these people because it gave me a much broader understanding of writing music for classical instruments.
Yeah, and there was a lot of songs. Somehow I remember doing a lot.
And at the same time, all these songs were pretty much written without vocal patterns in mind. I had to custom fit the vocals on all the tunes, and that turned out to be quite a challenge too.
And while doing so, I realized that Mike's got a really versatile and powerful screaming voice as well. And so Mike ended up not only doing most of the bass tracks on Precambrian, but also ended up doing a lot of the vocal parts.
Auf Precambrian gab es tatsächlich dann nicht mehr ganz so viel Sänger wie auf Aeolium, aber es waren trotzdem noch eine ganze Menge. Unter anderem ich.
Nate Newton made another appearance on the record, and Thomas Halbum as well.
Aeolian was more like in your face, and then the Precambrian is like more, you got everything on top and on bottom, and you explore everything in between, and sort of like a bigger spectra to it all. It's epic in a punk rock kind of way, you know.
You ended up sending me the tracks. It worked out better because I had a little more time to listen to it and kind of get acquainted with it, and I'm much happier with what I did on that record.
Precambrian came out in late 2007. It was really the album I have been wanting to do for a long time, you know, and now it was out there, and the result was great, I thought.
Precambrian hat mir ewig lange gut gefallen. Ich war richtig stolz drauf, kann man sagen.
Vom Gitarrensound, das ist einfach ultra brachial und brutal.
Man kann vielleicht sagen, dass das Songwriting von Robin einfach auch mit der Zeit gewachsen ist. Also ich glaube, dass jede Platte jeweils auf ihre Art irgendwie besser und reicher ist als die Platte davor.
For a long time I just never saw an end to all of this, you know. It was just such a beast of an album and such an intense process of creating it. You know, some of the songs had over 120 tracks. They were massively polyphonic and really complex arrangements. That's why sometimes throughout the recording process I just had these moments where I was just like, why the fuck am I even doing this? You know, it's never going to be finished, and it's never going to sound good in the end. I wasn't really sure if I ever wanted to do another album again. But that feeling didn't last for too long, unfortunately. We got the offer to support the Black Dahlia murder, and that was the first bigger support slot we ever got offered, so we were super keen to do it.
Eine der wenigen Bands, mit der ich auf Tour war, die ich mir jeden Abend angeguckt habe und nicht fassen konnte, wie tight die sind.
Ich bin natürlich sehr schlagzeugaffin, und Shannon Lucas ist einfach eine geile Sau.
And that tour was great fun for us. Really insane crowds, and we got along with the band very well. You know, Trevor is big time into a lot of music that we all like as well, so, you know, we had a great time hanging out and talking about music and shit.
What can I say? I was hit by the big wave. It's intelligent metal. It's crazy like how fast it grows. Like every fucking record is like another entity, kind of like another ocean.
I think it was during that tour that Mike realized that he didn't want to be a bass player, but that he really wanted to be a vocalist instead.
I was a lot happier doing vocals, really. Tried to do it at the same time as playing bass, but sometimes it was just too difficult.
And so after the tour, Mike switched position within the band and joined Nico as a second front row vocalist. And so the fucking lineup carousel just never stopped spinning.